Professor K here, and we're back with a quick video on the different types of data and values that you can have in JavaScript. So in our last video, we talked a lot about the different types of variables that you can have in JavaScript, namely var, const, and let. And remember that var or variable is just real generic. You can re-declare it, re-say it exists as many times as you want. You can reassign it, change the value as many times as you want. Whereas with let you can only declare once in the same scope, but you can reassign it as many times as you want. So you can say name exists once, but you can change the name as many times as you want. And then finally, with const, you can only declare it once, and you can never change it again. So that's why we're using const here, because I really like my name, and I'm never going to change it again. So here we have const name equals Ashley Cloje. And now I want to take some time and just inspect what types of data, what types of values do we have in JavaScript. So this is an introduction to what those types of values are. So here, I'm just going to comment this out so that it processes. And now I'm going to uncomment it, and we're going to discover what type of name, what type of value, this value, what is that type? And we're going to ask that about name. So let's uncomment this and see what it is. And if you have a guess, pause here, think about it. What do you think that is? Then uncomment this code in the data types video code pen that is paired with this and see if your answer is right. So let's uncomment it. All right. So if you guess string, you are right. Strings are always inside of quotes when you declare a variable. So because of these quotes, this constant name is going to be a type of string. Strings are really good for text, sentences, paragraphs, HTML, anything that's just kind of like not something that you add or subtract from, like a number. It's not something that you ask, is it true or false? That's a Boolean. String is kind of like that catch-all for everything else. All right, so now that we know what string is, let's take a look at what my age would be. So here, I'm going to say let age equals 31. And I'm using let because age could change over time. You don't have to think about that like, oh, do we age over time, like philosophical questions when you're coding, but just to kind of give you like a real life example, like you would use let when you expect something to change in your code. So in my code, I would expect age to change with like a birthday function that might increment my age 1 year. So let's take a look at what age is here. We've got let age equals 31, and then we're going to log the type of age. Now notice there are no quotes around this 31. So at this point, take a guess at what you think this type will be and why you think that type will be. And pause the video, uncomment, see if it's right. All right, let's do this. So we're going to uncomment this and uncomment this. Clear out the console. All right. And I would just recommend clearing out the console between each of these comments. I'll try and remember to do it in the videos. But notice here, from line 2, our type of name is string. And now this one's different. This one is now of a type number. That's because we don't have quotes around it. And it's also not a bunch of letters. So let's put a bunch of letters out here and see what that would change to. Here, it's saying letters is not defined. And that's because in JavaScript, when you just put a bunch of letters in here, it thinks you're asking about a variable. And it says, what do you mean, letters isn't defined? So the only time that you can get away with this kind of thing is when you have a number in there. All right, so we have string and number. Now here on line 7 is our next example, let height. This is an example, again, of something that would probably change over time, but all I've done is declared the height variable. I haven't actually assigned it to anything. So what do you think happens if there's no value? What might this try and spit out? So here, you're probably not going to know this offhand, but think, guess, what might it do? Would it error? Would it spit out something else? Would it let you know? Pause the video here, uncomment, and let's find out. Just clear this out. All right, so we have string from line 2, number from line 5, and now we have undefined. Undefined means exactly what it says. It hasn't been defined yet. I don't know what it is yet. So if you see that something is undefined, remember our last, one of our last couple errors here, we tried to put age to be some letters, and we got an error, right? Some letters is not defined, undefined, you might see that as. Those are all the same type of language for that doesn't exist yet. You haven't told me what the value is supposed to be. So that's what that's all about. Undefined is a type, and you can check for it. You can even, that's really common in good JavaScript, is to say, what happens when a variable is undefined? Kind of thinking about those edge cases, right? Just like you do in CSS. What happens if the browser shrinks or gets bigger? So these next two lines, I've set height to null. Null is a very special type of value. It means that I don't know what height is and I don't want to assign it to anything. So here I'm going to set the height to null. I don't want you to know my height. I did go to the classroom if you want to figure that out. So I'm going to say here, I need height to be around, and then I'm going to explicitly say I haven't set it yet. So let's see what the console says that type is now. Oh, that's really interesting. It's an object. I wouldn't have guessed that. I wonder what happens if you take these out. Still an object. Amazing. I guess null's an object. Today I learned. You're always learning something new when you're teaching. All right, well anyway, null is a very special keyword that just says, I don't know what I want to be yet, and that's fine. Now finally, we have let instructor equals true down here. And the reason why I have instructor as a let is because I might not be an instructor. I'm, I'm always changing careers and stuff like that. I'm always having fun. So right now I'm an instructor for this class, but I might be an instructor for a different class next semester. So that would be a good time to use the let keyword. So if we take a look and we look at the special true keyword, what might that type be? Let's take a look. We're going to uncomment this and uncomment that. Lines 13 and 14. And I'm just going to kind of let this run again, just so it's a little clearer to see. All right, so this should pop out things in the console again. Cool. So this last type is called a Boolean type. Boolean types are great for true-false values. They can only be true or false, nothing else. So that's an overview of different data types. Different data types matter because you can do different types of things with them, including addition and subtraction, and the way that you work with them can change the way that they come out later. So it's really important to know about your different data types and just be really cognizant of what's in quotes that turns it into a string versus some of these other numbers and keywords like a 31 would be a number, null is a keyword, true is a keyword, these special values versus a string. It's really, really important to only use those quotes when you actually need a string. For example, let's change this true to being in quotes. and watch that last console value. Look, now it's a string. And that means later on, if you check if something is true, this is not going to be the same kind of value. So it's going to be a real problem. So pay really close attention to these data types. All right, so that's that. I hope that helps you figure out what types of data you have available. Next, we're going to look at how to modify these variables and some of the different assignment operators you can use to change them. So I will see you in a moment.